In this podcast episode, Nir Eyal explores the intricate ways our beliefs shape our perception of reality and influence our actions, suffering, motivation, and ultimately our lives. He dives into the neuroscience behind perception, explains the critical role of beliefs in persistence and goal achievement, and illustrates the difference between pain and suffering. The conversation also touches on the malleability of beliefs, their profound impact on health and aging, the nuanced role of diagnosis, and how adopting liberating beliefs can transform relationships and personal well-being. Nir opens by explaining that humans do not perceive reality as it truly is, but rather through a complex filter shaped by our brain's predictive processing, which relies heavily on our prior beliefs. While the brain receives an enormous influx of sensory information, about 11 million bits per second, we are consciously aware of only around 50 bits. This tiny pinhole of attention causes us to interpret the world not based on facts, but on expectations formed by beliefs. Optical illusions, such as the checkerboard one where two identical squares appear different in shade, demonstrate how even concrete evidence cannot override our brain's filtering mechanisms. This highlights how deeply our perception is shaped and sometimes deceived by belief, not objective reality. An important distinction is made between facts, beliefs, and faith. Facts are objective truths that remain true regardless of personal opinion, like the spherical shape of the Earth. Faith represents convictions that do not require evidence. Beliefs lie in between. They are open to revision based on new evidence and experiences. The problem lies when people confuse beliefs with facts or treat faith as unchallengeable fact, leading to many interpersonal and societal issues. Nir stresses that beliefs are mental models constructed from experience and evidence, and they can be chosen and changed. Persistence is identified as the primary factor that determines who achieves their goals, more so than intelligence, resources, or information. Nir references a compelling 1950s study where wild rats initially gave up swimming after 15 minutes, but when periodically rescued and put back into the water, eventually swam for up to 60 hours straight. This demonstrated that persistence is powered by belief. Once hope and the possibility of salvation are introduced, the biological capacity for endurance is unlocked. Translating this to humans, motivation requires three components: knowing what to do, wanting the benefit or reward, and believing that persistence will lead to that benefit. Without belief, motivation suffers, and quitting happens prematurely. Nir defines limiting beliefs as those that diminish motivation and increase suffering, thereby making success impossible. Conversely, liberating beliefs invigorate motivation and lessen suffering. For example, a person training for a marathon who believes "I can't do this" is likely to quit early, whereas one who entertains the possibility "I might be able to do this" is far more likely to persist. Beliefs are thus tools to be tried on, like trying on shoes, rather than immutable truths. Exploring and choosing liberating beliefs can expand one's potential significantly. A nuanced yet crucial distinction is made between pain, the sensory signal, and suffering, the emotional and psychological reaction to pain. Nir shares a remarkable anecdote of a man undergoing surgery without anesthesia by using a technique called hypnosed, where he felt pain signals but did not suffer from them. This phenomenon is explained by the brain's interpretation of signals. Where pain is inevitable, suffering is optional and largely modulated by belief and attention. Chronic pain illustrates this well. Fear amplifies pain perception, creating a vicious cycle, but through awareness and changing beliefs, suffering can be reduced even when pain exists. Nir critiques commonly embraced positive thinking and manifestation practices, emphasizing that envisioning only positive outcomes without anticipating obstacles can backfire by lowering motivation. Instead, he advocates for mental contrasting, a technique where one imagines not just the desired goal, but also the concrete obstacles and how to overcome them. Preparing mentally for the challenges builds psychological resilience and practical readiness, increasing the likelihood of success. This approach also facilitates separating pain from suffering by interpreting difficult emotions and sensations as part of the growth process. Beliefs profoundly affect health outcomes, particularly how individuals age. Nir discusses studies showing that people with positive views of aging live significantly longer, sometimes by 7-5 years, than those with negative views. This effect arises not through mystical biological processes, but because positive beliefs lead to healthier behaviors such as regular exercise, social engagement, and preventive care. Cultural differences in attitudes toward aging, such as some tribes believing one becomes a better runner in old age, further illustrate the power of belief in shaping physical vitality. He stresses that encouraging a growth mindset at any age fosters better health and longevity. In the realm of health, Nir explores how labels and diagnoses can both empower and imprison. While receiving a diagnosis like ADHD can provide relief through explanation, it may also reinforce limiting beliefs, leading to identity foreclosure, the conflation of diagnosis with self-identity. He urges viewing diagnoses as tools or maps to help navigate challenges rather than immutable destinies. Adopting this mindset helps avoid the trap of using a diagnosis as a self-fulfilling limitation and instead promotes agency in learning skills and strategies for growth. Despite diagnoses, agency, the belief in one's ability to influence outcomes, is a central theme. People with an internal locus of control, who believe they shape their circumstances, tend to have better psychological well-being and life outcomes across nearly all domains. Even in objectively difficult situations, maintaining an internal locus equips individuals to cope better and thrive. Nir challenges deterministic narratives that focus solely on external socioeconomic factors, emphasizing that empowering individuals to act within their control is essential for improving quality of life. This empowerment includes adopting beliefs that shift perception and motivation. Nir shares a personal story about a frustrating interaction with his mother and how his perception was shaped by limiting beliefs about her being judgmental. By applying a reflective method called turnaround, which involves questioning the absolute truth of one's beliefs and considering their opposites, he was able to soften his judgment, reduce suffering, and increase motivation to maintain the relationship. This exercise exemplifies how beliefs about others color our experiences and how shifting those beliefs can free us from suffering and open the door to more compassionate interactions. Throughout the conversation, Nir reiterates that beliefs are mental models built through experience and evidence and are best treated as tools, not truths. He encourages listeners to experiment by trying on new beliefs for a limited time to see if they serve better than old limiting ones. This deliberate construction and revision of beliefs can dramatically affect one's internal state, relationships, resilience, and ability to achieve goals. Nir illustrates how liberating beliefs can reshape everyday experiences of discomfort and temptation. For example, when resisting chocolate cake, the pain of hunger or craving is simply sensory information. Suffering arises when one attaches negative judgment, like self-criticism, to the experience. By learning to interpret pain as neutral data, one can reduce unnecessary suffering and make empowered choices instead of reacting on autopilot in ways that undermine goals. To shield against the brain's default pull towards passivity and limiting beliefs, Nir highlights the importance of frequently using empowering mantras that reframe discomfort, such as, "This is what it feels like to get better," or "Things don't get easier, you get stronger." These reframes function as cognitive tools that reinforce resilience and motivation, helping individuals persist through challenges instead of succumbing to suffering and quitting prematurely. The episode covers how anticipation shaped by belief can produce tangible physiological effects, as exemplified by a man who accidentally took placebo antidepressants in an overdose attempt, but exhibited genuine overdose symptoms due to his expectations. Similarly, beliefs about substances like caffeine can manifest in physical responses disproportionate to the biological effects. These placebo and nocebo effects reinforce how powerful the mind's expectations are in shaping bodily states, underscoring the central role of belief in health and perception. Nir relates a story about Serena Williams' coach who fabricated statistics to convince her that rushing the net in tennis yielded an 80% scoring rate when she actually lacked confidence in that playstyle. Empowered by this belief, she changed her behavior, which led to real improvements and victories. This reveals how adopting liberating beliefs, even if initially somewhat untrue, can catalyze performance and agency. The key is that the belief aligns with existing latent abilities and helps unlock them rather than being baseless self-deception. The discussion closes with an emphasis on the freedom and power of choosing beliefs strategically to enhance motivation and reduce suffering. Nir's closing advice encourages self-reflection to identify limiting beliefs, inquiry to question their absolute truth, and experimentation with opposite or alternative beliefs as mental tools. By doing so, individuals realize their untapped potential and reclaim control over their perceptions, motivations, and ultimately their results in life.